Hi, my name is Susie Kramer, and I'm here with fellow Ithacans to tell you about a letter that we have sent to the mayor. I put it in his hands just a couple of days ago. We, the undersigned, write to express our extreme dismay. The demolition of the asbestos contaminated former Tompkins County Public Library is reportedly scheduled to start December 17th, 2018. That's day after tomorrow, the week before Christmas, and by far the busiest time for many local merchants. We know from a Delta survey, Delta is the company that Travis Hyde hired to do a survey of the asbestos in the building, which is required when you are going to do a demolition. And they found numerous asbestos-containing materials in the building. There was going to be an abatement that was going to last for 2 months, and we expected that to happen. They bought the building about a year ago. In the summer, we expected in June that it would take place. We learned that they had gotten the building condemned. And that means that they do not have to do the contained abatement anymore. They can simply tear into it. The Delta plan, which is dated May of this year, they were going to encapsulate it, negative air pressure, remove all these materials before the demolition. That is the right way to do it. It's the only safe way to do it. The Delta engineer has told us it's the only safe way because the hazard of not taking it out is so much greater. It is really a public health emergency. I live a couple doors down here, and I have a fellow mother here. I have 2 daughters, and this is my neighbor just right across the street.
So we're out here today because we're scared. This is a main thoroughfare. People who live here are in danger. People who are walking by, children trying to go to the high school, children trying to go to Boynton, people trying to go to DeWitt Mall to get their Christmas shopping done, to go to the restaurants, people going to church, playing here in the park, which is an important resource of the heart of our town.
There's GIAC.
And GIAC, I mean, we're right in the middle of everything. And what we're being told is going to start happening on Monday is they're just going to destroy this building full of asbestos without doing anything besides wetting it down with a hose. Now, most of you know that even if you have non-friable, the less dangerous kind of asbestos in your home, in the tiles and what have you, you've got to get a professional asbestos abatement done, which is expensive, cumbersome, but all of us are required to do it to safeguard each other's health. They are getting out of this, and they're getting out of this due to their own neglect. When Travis Hyde bought this building, they bought it under the context of the county saying, look, the roof is ending, the period of its useful life in number of years. We don't have the money to fix it up, which has to happen in the next year. And so we need to sell it to someone who will either do a proper asbestos abatement right away or spend the money to fix that roof. What he did and he got it at a substantial discount because of that.
It was assessed for $1.5 million, and this was before it was upzoned. And the Travis Hyde Company paid $925,000. It's a $17 million project.
Right, and abatement is about $500,000, so that makes sense.
We've been told.
But instead of doing that, he let this building sit here. He didn't even shovel the sidewalks. He didn't do basic maintenance. He certainly didn't shore up the roof. And he waited and he waited and he waited until he could write to the city and say a year later, I want you to condemn this so that I don't have to do asbestos abatement. Because if you condemn a building, you can then avoid the safety precautions that you need to be taking for asbestos ridden buildings. This is really upsetting to us as a neighborhood, as a county, as a town. We do not deserve to be put in danger this way just to save Travis Hyde the money of fixing this thing up. We believe there still are solutions. The mayor made certain promises to us to try to enforce those solutions. One of them was that the mayor said, okay, well, maybe I can't force him to do more than the minimum, which is basically nothing at this point. But what I can do is I can tell him that he won't get a tax abatement unless he does the most that he can do to keep us all safe. And so part of that was the mayor promised to work with us, the neighborhood. We identified a spokesperson. We wanted Susie to be our representative. We were all at a meeting. We asked for this. He promised this, that he would work with Susie, who would be a liaison to the rest of us concerned citizens around here, and get an independent engineer to do his own report and to ask specific questions that we identify, such as, okay, are there any portions of the building that could be safely removed at this point after the negligence has led to a condemnation order? Is there something that can be done in addition to just spraying it with a hose? What kinds of steps can we take to safeguard everybody more than the minimum? Instead of doing that, the mayor did not involve the community in his choice of an engineer. He did not have the engineer do an independent report. He just did a peer review of Travis Hyde's company report. Company hired report, and he didn't answer the questions that we wanted answered. And we're still asking for those questions to be answered before they start tearing this thing down. I think it's really important that as Ithacans, as interested community members, we hold Travis Hyde accountable for what is happening. We try to put a stop to this, and if the city still gives them a tax abatement after doing this to us, we need to really raise our voices in protest, because that is not okay to incentivize this kind of behavior.
So thank you, Sujata. We were told that an independent engineer would be hired, that we would have a say as to the assessment that he would do. We would be included in the conversation. And the primary question, and the code director himself, code enforcement officer Mike Nichidovich himself, said that the question that would be asked, the primary question was, how do we shore this decking up so that we can get in there? It wasn't just about making it safer and taking out what we could, because our objective was to have it all removed. We agreed at this public meeting with the mayor and with everyone else there that it was possible, very likely possible, to shore up the roof. And Mike himself, in an email, wrote to me and said, the question we're going to ask that engineer is, how do we shore up the roof, even temporarily, to lift the condemnation order so that asbestos removal can take place? Because that has been our goal all along. The primary goal all along, and it's still our goal today, is to have all of the asbestos-containing materials taken out of that building as per the Delta report. And there's already a plan, a very detailed plan to do that. And all we need to do is to make it happen. Is there a plan for when they're going to do this if nothing changes? The plan is to start tearing into the building, we understand, on Monday, day after tomorrow. And that is the 17th, it's the week before Christmas, and there will be an active construction zone with dust coming out and water being sprayed, we believe, if not Monday, very shortly afterwards during this week. And the merchants here are really very, very upset about this. The parking situation, how that's been difficult, and the online sales and all these other things. And this is feeling like the final blow to them to have this happen.
Absolutely. I've spoken to a lot of merchants who are upset as well. And one of the big issues here, there are so many, but we face really lean times in January and February and March in this town for retail and restaurants. And it's imperative to these merchants to have a bustling holiday season. This is their busiest week. The money that they make this next coming couple of weeks has to get them through those lean times. And Travis Hyde has chosen this time to start this dangerous demolition that's going to keep people from feeling safe coming to their stores and restaurants.
And churches.
It's
not conducive to the holiday spirit
or frankly to my family. I live across the street. I have 2 little children. One of them is 1.5. Asbestos is more dangerous even for children than it is for adults. And I'm right across the street, and we have to decide this Christmas whether we're going to spend it in our home or whether we're going to have to find a way to somehow crash with other people and stay somewhere else for the next 8 weeks so that my kids' health is not put in danger. And that is a big deal to us. It's a big deal to feel unsafe in our own neighborhood, to feel physically unsafe from the hazards of asbestos, which is what the city is asking us to do. And I really hope, I am really so grateful to all the people who have come out and who have raised their voices, not just here. We have over 800 signatories to a letter to the mayor. There are many more people who are very concerned, watching very carefully what this city does, what Travis Hyde does, because our developers they get a lot from our city. They get a lot of abatements, they get a lot of support, they get a lot of workarounds, and they have a responsibility to keep us safe when they're doing these developments.
And I'd like to just add, Sujata, she was saying that she's not going to feel safe for 8 weeks as it's being demolished. But the thing is that asbestos is not like other substances. the fibers are tiny. And this is a human hair. And this little yellow dot is an asbestos fiber. They are microscopic fibers. You will not see them coming out. You will not see them in the water, in the air. The air monitoring, 99% of what the air monitoring picks up when the alarm goes off is dust. And we were told this by the asbestos expert for the state. And the reason is that the monitor has to have a critical mass of dust to go off. And then the dust is tested. It's not testing for asbestos. The asbestos testing takes place afterwards, and it's not always detected. You need a special microscope. So when the alarm goes off, it just means there's a lot of dust. And we know that given that there's a lot of asbestos in there, that there will be asbestos coming out in that dust. And we won't be able to see it. It will come out in the air. It will probably come out in the water. They're going to be spraying tens of thousands of gallons of water constantly during working hours. When the water migrates, it dries out, the asbestos fibers then float up into the air. We will bring them into our homes. They will be all over, and they persist. They don't simply dissolve. So it's not like lead paint, which of course is bad too. There is some lead paint in the building. You can see dust, lead dust. You cannot see asbestos fibers. So it's not just for the 8 weeks of demolition. It could contaminate and probably will create asbestos pollution throughout this area. And let me just add that the prevailing winds in the wintertime are from the northwest, which means that the dust will be blowing right into this park. I was here a few days ago, and there were some children playing in the park, 10 toddlers, and they were from a preschool that usually is here almost every day, using it as their playground because they don't have a playground. And they had no idea that the library was about to be demolished and that potentially the children could be exposed right here. I think the developer is thinking perhaps it's a quiet time of year, the park isn't being used much. This is still a very actively used space. And of course, it is a major thoroughfare for walkers. It's not just people driving by. And they will not be driving by if this becomes an active demolition site on Monday. They will be hitting this intersection, and then they will be going this way and that way or heading back up to the mall. They are not going to be coming downtown to patronize our small businesses. And it's such a critical time for them.
I wanted to add something to what you were saying because I think it's important. I have participated in asbestos litigation before. I'm an attorney. And one issue that has come up in a number of cases are when people track asbestos back into their own homes, oftentimes you'll see families of people who have family members working at or near an asbestos site, tracking those asbestos fibers back into the house, and the family members then getting cancers and getting sick years later from the asbestos exposure that way. So it really isn't just if you live here or if you're right in front of it or if you're right in the building. Walking by here, getting those asbestos fibers on your boots, then walking into your house, that can and has been proven to be hazardous. There's no safe level of asbestos. That needs to be understood. There's no level that scientists have said that's a safe exposure level. This is deadly stuff.
That's right. And people walking their dogs, landlords and owners of those properties are putting plastic up on the windows to do something to try to protect ourselves. And Travis Hyde has offered nothing. They have not even offered information about when this is going to happen, the procedures. There's some information trickling out on a very small listserv, but even Seth Murtaugh, who is one of our council members, said he has never seen such bad communication between a developer and the residents. Very, very little information released, despite repeated requests for information. Just doing everything we can to protect ourselves, but it's a scramble because we just had no idea that this was happening until October. And we have children, we have lives, and we have devoted countless hours to doing research and to trying to get information from the city about the procedures, about the amount of asbestos, all of these things. And it's been very difficult, if not impossible, to get this information. But we are going to keep it friendly and respectful, and we have done that right along. And I congratulate all of us for engaging the city and engaging the developer in a respectful way, in a way that tries to get everybody to look at the evidence look at the documents and respectfully request what we deserve, which is a safe demolition. Not a demolition that's not quite as safe, but still safe. We want the safest demolition. That's what we want. And that's really what we deserve. What you can all do still is continue to write the mayor and your representatives, and you need to, again, respectfully request that they do the right thing here. And the mayor says that he legally can't do anything, but he has a moral responsibility to do something.
And he has the power to do something.
Yes,
we
he does.
have that tax abatement. We need our mayor
Thank you.
and our representatives to know that we expect them to honor the promise they made to us, which doesn't appear to be something that they're standing behind right now, that if Travis Hyde goes ahead with this on Monday without us doing the independent review and finding out the different ways to shore up the roof and do proper asbestos abatement on as much of the building as we actually physically can.
And shore up the roof if necessary.
And if they don't do that, and if they go ahead with this demolition on Monday, this city cannot give them a single penny in tax abatements.
And we will continue to hold the mayor strictly responsible. He will be responsible for this because it is in his power. He could put on his best local hero hat. He could say, Travis Hyde, you need to do the right thing. And that's what we are asking him to do and what he needs to do.
And this is important not just for this project.
Exactly.
We need to send a message to developers that this is not, the new solution to getting around asbestos abatement. You don't just let your building sit there until it's neglected enough that you can get a condemnation letter so that you can avoid properly dealing with asbestos. That's not okay. The city needs to send a strong message to Travis Hyde that that is not okay, and they have the power to do it.
Well, and unfortunately, the precedent has already been established because we have heard, and this was one of the things that the mayor told us and the co-director told us to reassure us. They have done this kind of controlled demolition all over the place, dozens of times in Ithaca. So it must be safe. And so we are looking into some of these other safe demolitions, and we're finding Summit Avenue, for example, Cliff Street, some other places that condemnations were issued perhaps inappropriately, and certainly that these controlled demolitions were not as controlled as they could have been. I just wanted to talk about the businesses one more time. We have, if you don't mind my identifying you, we have Patty Jacobson, who has a chiropractic office just down from the site. My husband is the landlord for a therapist office, which is right next door to the site. We have the Women's Opportunity Center, which is directly across from the site. It's a wonderful operation, teaches retail skills and other skills to women. And they have usually a rack of clothing outside on the porch, which they will be taking in. So it's not just in this direction.
And Susie, if there's child therapists.
And yes, they specialize in children and adolescents, and they are very concerned. They wrote the mayor very early on in the process, and they said, Mayor, our clients who come here are already stressed. They already have anxiety. And to have this happening when they're trying to come and for their well-being, for their appointments, is really wrong. And they have actually shut their business for this coming week in anticipation of just how scary the process is going to be on Monday when we see the claw nibbling away, and that's what the construction people called it, nibbling away at the building and releasing dust and asbestos fibers. Now, one more point, Sujata was saying that it's with a fire hose, and they're saying no, it's with a water tower. They have a sophisticated water tower, and they have special nozzles. And this does make a difference because they do sometimes use a fire hose. And we know the EPA says this is very bad because it propels the asbestos fibers out even further, as you know if you've ever power washed anything. So they have this tower with special nozzles, and they described it as more like a snowmaking machine. It doesn't work very well if it's below zero, so they put salt in the water. And if it's really cold, they will have to shut the operation down for a while. They cover the piles of debris with plastic until they can resume operations. If the piles dry out, of course, or there are gaps, the asbestos fibers are released. Water is the other thing. They're telling us that they have these great air monitors and they have water. And these are the two methods of control. These are the only methods of control besides barriers to contain that water after it's used. So that does not really reassure us. They finally go public with what they're going to do. They still have not released specifics to the public. They will be, I can assure you, talking about the air monitors and about the water. We need more than that. We need to have the asbestos taken out, because no matter what you spray on it or how much testing you do, the fact is that there are enormous quantities that will become friable as they're broken up and will be released into our environment and then dispersed by the winds and by the water. We have sent a coalition letter to the mayor, and you may sign it at toxicstargeting.com, and it is still in effect. We are going to hold the mayor strictly responsible if this library is torn down with the asbestos still inside.